Hello and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. We got some strange actions from the SEC in regards to a Bitcoin ETF file. They didn't just readily reject a Bitcoin ETF. I know, it's shocking. Because essentially, like before, on previous Bitcoin ETFs, they were like, you shall not pass. And they just rejected them, including the ones from Fidelity and other companies, Skybridge, Fidelity, Wisdom Tree. But Bitwise's, they're asking them to actually address a couple of issues. So we're making some improvement. Maybe Hester Pierce has finally had her effect on the SEC. Let's hope that's the case. But their concern, the SEC's concerns, including possible share manipulation and liquidity. So they've asked Bitwise to clarify how the investment firm will prevent share manipulation, fraud, and other potential issues in its proposed spot Bitcoin ETF. The agency also flagged its concerns about Bitwise Bitcoin ETP's trust liquidity and transparency, and requested more color on the suitability of Bitcoin as the underlying asset for the fund. So there you have it right there. They flagged some concerns about the ETP, and they requested more color on the suitability of Bitcoin as the underlying asset for the fund. So they want to clear some things up. It's still not great, but it's much better than just a flat-out rejection. This obviously veers off from its serial denials. This is from CoinDesk, by the way. It veers off from the serial denials to date of other proposed spot Bitcoin ETPs and ETFs. I think they mean ETFs because Bitwise definitely proposed an ETF and ETPs. Over the past 2 months, the agency has rejected applications from Wisdom Tree, Krypton, Skybridge, and Fidelity. And Bitwise was actually delayed for a decision on the spot Bitcoin applications of Bitwise and Grayscale. So Grayscale hasn't been completely denied yet. Bitwise has 21 days to respond to the SEC's concerns. Hopefully, other companies will file and they'll actually learn from their mistakes. Hopefully they can paint the SEC into a corner where they basically have no reason to actually deny their Bitcoin spot ETF. Because I do think a Bitcoin spot ETF is one of those things that could really kickstart a new bull market. Hopefully they actually respond, address all the concerns so the SEC has no more complaints. We do know that we have at least one commissioner which is in favor of a Bitcoin ETF, but the 4 others may not be so in favor. We had actually 2 in favor, but the other one, the second one kind of retired, so now it's only Hester Pierce. I do think a Bitcoin ETF has a decent chance of getting passed this year, but I say that every single year. Gary Gensler obviously is still kind of our obstacle, but hopefully the other 5 commissioners, we can convince some of them to actually turn and support a Bitcoin ETF. Gary Gensler might be the chair of the SEC, but it only takes 3 of the 5 commissioners to actually vote yay for something to actually pass. It doesn't take all 5. So if we can convince the other guys to actually pass a Bitcoin ETF, we may not need Gensler's full support. Obviously, as the chair of the SEC, he does actually have a lot of power and a lot of sway, but we know at least one of the commissioners is very much for a Bitcoin ETF. And she is also very much for the SEC reeling back and dialing back some things in terms of regulatory pressure. But so far from what I've heard, the other 2 commissioners that are still on the board right now are not as bullish on Bitcoin, and they vote with Gensler. The third one, I don't like. The other one did side with Hester Pierce, but they are being replaced, and I'm not really sure what the replacement actually thinks. But a little bit of progress is a little bit of progress. At least they didn't outright reject Bitwise, and they actually brought up a couple of concerns that they asked Bitwise to address or fix. Hopefully, when Bitwise addresses or fixes one of those, they will actually accept a Bitcoin ETF within the United States. I think they might be feeling some pressure internationally too, because other countries have actually accepted both Bitcoin ETPs and Bitcoin ETFs, and they are actually making strides. There are a lot of senators and congressmen saying that we can't lag behind in this technology. So Gary Gensler does have pressure to actually stay on the innovation course, but he obviously has his own agenda to be a hardline enforcer as well. Maybe Congress will finally pressure him to actually accept a Bitcoin ETF. Not really sure how that actually goes. But hopefully, Bitwise ETF can actually address all these concerns so they have no complaints. But like I said, a little bit of progress from an outright denial. Now there's some issues they actually need to address, and they didn't get an outright denial. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe and hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.